It was just after 4 a.m. when I heard the front door unlock. And I knew no one else should have had the key. After my last breakup, I had no choice but to move back in with my family. My ex and I were living together in a Boston apartment we'd rushed into. Lesson learned: never sign a lease with someone you've only just started dating. He turned out to be someone I didn't recognize at all. So I packed my things, said goodbye to city life, and ended up back in western Massachusetts. If you've ever been out this way, you know the deal. The further west you go, the more the world starts to disappear into woods and long-forgotten roads. I'm not built for the countryside. I like noise, neon, late-night takeout and busy sidewalks. Here, it's fields and silence. But I figured it was temporary, just a pit stop until I could get back on my feet and into a place of my own. Not Boston, though. Never again. In the meantime, I landed a job back at the urgent care clinic I used to work at before the move. Everyone there was surprisingly thrilled to see me again, even if they knew I wouldn't be staying long. The catch? I got stuck with the graveyard shift. Easy work, sure, but lonely, quiet, and bad for the soul. Not to mention it wrecked my sleep and basically nuked whatever social life I had left. Most mornings, after my shift ends, I grab something to eat, my version of dinner, just at the wrong side of the clock. On this particular morning, I clocked out at 4 a.m. and stopped by this weird little bagel shop that opens at that hour. They serve all kinds of stuff, so I got a chicken sandwich and a salad to go. But I also needed gas. There's a Shell station on the way home that's open 24/7, which is rare around here. The lot is enormous, but for some reason, I almost never see another soul there. Even in daylight it looks deserted. I went in to pay cash, it's a few cents cheaper, and when I came back out, I noticed a blue sedan had pulled up at another pump. A man got out. I didn't think much of it until he wandered around to my side of the pump and said, "Wanna see a funny trick?" Everything in me immediately screamed nope. I hated it. Hated his tone, hated that he was talking to me at all. But for some reason, I humored him. I asked, "What's the trick?" He launched into that tired old gag where you pretend to pull your thumb off with your other hand. You know the one. He stared at his hands, then back at me, like he was waiting for a laugh. I gave him a fake one, hoping he'd take the hint and move on. But he didn't. He just kept doing it, over and over. Even after I turned away. Even after I stopped responding. I focused on the pump, silently begging for the click that meant my tank was full. Click. Finally. Relief. I latched the nozzle back in place and rushed inside to grab my change. When I came back out, the man was gone. His car was still there, still fueling up, nozzle locked in place, but he was nowhere to be seen. I didn't want to find him. Didn't want him to find me. I checked my back seat out of instinct before getting in. Empty. Still, I locked the doors the second I was inside and drove off like the road behind me might disappear. Home was just 5 minutes away. The thought of food was the only thing keeping me grounded. When I pulled up, everything looked normal. I grabbed the spare key from its usual hiding spot and let myself in. It's a habit, being quiet when I come home so I don't wake my parents. I rehid the key and locked the door behind me. The house was still. Silent. I made a beeline for the kitchen and started to eat. And then, the front door unlocked. I froze, food still in my mouth, halfway through a bite. The door opened. Closed. Clicked shut. I didn't hear footsteps. No voices. No motion. Just silence again. "Mom?" I called out softly. "Dad?" No answer. I walked to the foyer. It was empty. That's when I ran, up the stairs straight to my parents' room, heart pounding like a drum in my throat. I flung the door open so hard it banged against the wall, and there they were, both of them, startled, still in bed. My voice was barely above a whisper, but shaking. "Someone just came in the house." My dad jumped out of bed and bolted down the stairs. I followed, terrified. Lights flipped on as we went from room to room. He checked the hiding spot for the key. It was gone. Gone. My mom was pale. But still, she found a moment to scold me for not checking my surroundings before putting the key back. Dad kept searching the house. Every room. Every corner. And that's where this part of the story ends. For now. But let me ask you this. Are you sure you locked your door tonight? Because someone out there may already have your key. After my dad finished checking my brother's room, he moved on, leaving the lights on behind him. I stayed in that room for a minute, not because I expected anything, but I don't know, something in me just needed to be sure. I got on my knees and looked under the bed, nothing. I slid open the closet doors. Empty. I exhaled. Downstairs, I could hear my dad checking the basement. I stayed upstairs with my mom. I wasn't about to go down there, even with someone else in the house. That darkness, that silence, it felt like something might reach out and grab me if I got too close. But curiosity tugged at me anyway. I walked toward the dining room. It's right off the foyer, a room we never really used. As I stepped in, I dropped to my knees and peeked under the long table. And that's when I saw him. The man from the gas station was curled up beneath the table, staring at me. My body froze, and for a second, it didn't feel real. It felt like a bad dream, the kind where you scream but nothing comes out. Then I screamed. Loud. Panicked. Raw. My mom started screaming too, just from the sound of mine. My dad came pounding up the stairs, faster than I thought a 65-year-old man could even move. The man slid out from under the table and lunged, and my dad threw himself at him. They fought. The man was younger, stronger. We watched him begin to overpower my dad and instinct kicked in. My mom and I jumped in, we punched, scratched, did whatever we could. My dad didn't let go. Only when it was all three of us did the man finally give in. He broke away and sprinted out the front door into the night. We called the police. They arrived fast, thank God. But he still had the spare key. That night, a cruiser stayed parked in our driveway, just in case. My dad shoved a chair up against the front door and slept downstairs with the lights on. First thing in the morning, he changed the locks. And that was the last time my family ever hid a spare key outside. I felt sick with guilt, like I'd brought this nightmare into our home. And honestly, I think I did. I think that man followed me from the gas station, driving with his headlights off. I never saw him behind me, but that doesn't mean he wasn't there. We were lucky. So lucky. But I wanted out. I wanted gone. Living there meant carrying the weight of what happened every time I walked past that table, every time I heard a creak at night. So when the chance came to get out, just for a little while, I took it. I like long drives at night. No traffic, no stress. Just you, the road, and whatever darkness the world decides to throw at you. So when I planned a month-long trip to visit my brother in Florida, I knew I was driving. Flights were too much of a hassle, and besides, I didn't want to depend on him for rides the whole time. The plan was to leave Long Island at 2 a.m. on a Thursday and beat all the early morning madness on the roads. By the time I hit Jersey, the roads were clear. Cold, quiet, peaceful. Around 4 a.m., the hunger kicked in hard, so I pulled off the I-95 at the first sign for food. There it was, a Wendy's sign glowing in the dark. Perfect. I followed the signs. No street lights. No cars. No sound. Just the crunch of gravel under my tires and the low hum of my headlights slicing through the pitch black. I felt like I'd driven into the edge of nowhere. The Wendy's was lit up, kind of. A few lights on inside, one car in the lot, and the drive-thru menu was glowing. I figured they were open. I pulled up and waited. No voice came through the intercom. I waited a minute. 2. Even said, "Excuse me?" Nothing. That's when I pulled out my phone and looked them up. Closed until 6 a.m. Of course. I was just about to pull away when 3 knocks, hard and fast, right on my driver's window. I jolted. My heart slammed into my throat. I turned and saw a man standing there, smiling. Big, wide, way too friendly smile. He motioned for me to roll down the window. I cracked it, just barely. He leaned in a little and said, "They're not opened yet." "Yeah," I replied. "I just figured that out." He pointed toward the only other car in the parking lot. "My battery's dead," he said. "Can you help me jump it?" His voice was urgent, almost pleading. "Please," he said. "I've been stuck here a while." I looked over at his car. Just sitting there, dark. No hood open. No dome light. No signs that he'd actually tried to fix anything. And something about the way he was standing didn't sit right with me. Not panicked. Not embarrassed. Just waiting. The moment two trucks screamed into the parking lot from opposite sides, I realized I'd made a massive mistake. He told me not to worry. He had jumper cables in his trunk. I hesitated, looking at his car again, parked awkwardly near the woods, shadowed and still. But something inside me whispered about karma, about doing the right thing. So I said okay. He stepped back so I could pull my car up next to his, hood to hood. I popped mine open, got out, and stood there while he retrieved the cables. I remember feeling the cold air bite into my skin as I clipped the metal clamps to my terminals. I started my engine again and let it idle, hoping this wouldn't take long. A few minutes passed. He turned his key. Nothing. Weird, considering he had supposedly just driven there. His battery should have had enough juice for a restart. I glanced at him, and he shrugged, saying he'd call his friend for advice. He stepped away and started talking in Spanish, quietly, almost like he didn't want me hearing a word. I didn't speak it, so I let my attention drift, staring out into the woods. Still empty. Still quiet. When he came back, he gave a vague excuse. His friend said to try again in a few minutes. I nodded, but my gut had turned sour. And then, engines. 2 of them. Loud. Fast. Aggressive. 2 pickup trucks tore into the lot, one from each side of the building, boxing me in like they'd rehearsed it. "Oh shit," I muttered, yanking the jumper cables off my battery and slamming my hood shut. My hands were shaking. My pulse was a scream in my ears. I turned to him, still smiling. But that smile had changed. It was sharp now. Cruel. Predatory. I locked my car with the key fob, spun around, and sprinted toward the woods. Branches clawed at my legs, ripping into my shins. I didn't care. I ran until the ground caught me, tripped on something, fell hard. I stayed down. Curled in. I made myself small and prayed. Voices started calling out in Spanish. At least 3 men. They were looking for me. And they were close. It was the tensest moment of my life. My body refused to move. My breath came in tiny gasps. I waited for them to find me. For a flashlight beam. A hand? Anything. But they didn't. The voices drifted, then disappeared. Then, my car alarm went off. I wanted to scream. All of my stuff, my entire month's worth of clothes, shoes, my jewelry, was in that car. I crept out from the trees, crouched low, and moved closer. They were gone. Just my car remained, sitting like a corpse in the lot. I ran to it, breath held. Rear window? Shattered. Trunk? Cleaned out. Back seats? Empty. Everything, gone. I started to cry, not just from the loss, but from the helpless, gnawing stress of it all. I called the police, voice shaking, explaining everything. They arrived quickly, but there wasn't much they could do. The Wendy's wouldn't open for hours, and the cameras weren't accessible until then. After taking my statement, the officer told me I could go. I drove back home. 2 hours of cold silence, shattered glass rustling with every bump. The most depressing, defeated drive of my life. Days later, they called me back. Said the man's car had fake plates. The trucks? No plates at all. They'd vanished into the dark like they were never there. They never found my stuff. I still believe in karma. I hope those bastards got exactly what was coming to them. But even if they did, it didn't bring my things back. It didn't make me feel safe again. And now, I never stop for strangers. It was somewhere between midnight and madness when I saw the sign for a rest area, just a tiny symbol glowing in the dark, promising a place to stretch, piss, and shake off the sleep creeping into my skull. We've all been there on long drives, haven't we? Fighting to keep our eyes open, promising ourselves just 10 more minutes until the next stop. You never know what you'll get. Sometimes it's a full complex with food and light and people. Other times, it's just a concrete box beside a dark highway. I was deep into a 15-hour road trip, somewhere on the East Coast. Don't ask me where exactly, I couldn't tell you. All I knew was the signs had stopped naming towns, and the GPS had lost service a while back. It was late, too late. And I was the only car on the road. So when I saw the symbol for a rest stop, I pulled off. No second thought. I just needed to pee and wake myself up before I drove into a ditch. But the exit ramp was long, longer than it should have been. The road curved and dipped, swallowed by trees, and when I finally saw the rest stop, I almost laughed. It was tiny. Just a squat little building, single story, no lights except a dim one above the entrance. No vending machines. No signs. Just a pair of bathrooms and a cracked sidewalk leading up to it. But what really made me pause, what made the hair on my neck stand up, was the car already parked there. An old sedan. Parked crooked. Headlights off. But the engine was still running. When I pulled into the rest stop and saw only one other car in the lot, I thought I'd finally caught a break. I didn't know I was walking into the middle of something much darker. There weren't many cars on the road at that hour, there never are. It was one of those long, dead-of-night stretches where you start to forget the world exists outside your headlights. I was restless in my seat, legs stiff, bladder aching, and mind foggy from the endless drive. So when I saw the blue rest area sign glowing like a lighthouse in the dark, I felt instant relief. A few miles later, I pulled in. It was a small one, just a single low building and some faded parking lines. No semi-trucks, no vending machines, nothing but the bare minimum. One other car was there, parked crooked and still. I figured the driver was probably napping. As I got out, I stretched and glanced toward the other car. The windows were tinted, too tinted. I couldn't tell if someone was inside or not. No big deal, just strange. Then I went inside the bathroom. And that's where everything took a turn. There was a man in there. Standing in the corner. His back was to me. His head down. At first I assumed he was using the urinal. But then I noticed, he wasn't even facing it. He was facing the corner of the room. Just standing there. I froze. My instinct wanted to say something, to ask if he was okay. But something deeper told me not to. Told me to move slow. Don't disturb whatever this was. I had to pass behind him to get to the stall, and I swear, I held my breath the entire time. My pulse was screaming in my ears. Inside the stall, I couldn't go. I just couldn't. The air felt heavy. The silence? Unnatural. It was like the entire building was holding its breath with me. I waited a minute, maybe two. Tried. Failed. Flushed anyway. When I stepped out, he turned around. He was still standing in the same exact spot, but now he was facing me. Staring. And I will never forget that face. Something about the area around his eyes, the blank, hollow way he looked at me. He didn't look human. Not really. Not anymore. I didn't say a word. Just turned and walked out fast, back to my car, heart pounding like it was trying to break free. As I started the engine and reversed, I glanced in the mirror. He was walking toward me. I floored it back onto the highway. The relief of being on the road again didn't last long. I still had to pee. I figured I could make it to the next stop, just 20 more minutes. When I finally saw the next rest area, I pulled in, praying it wouldn't be another bad scene. No other cars this time. Just me. I parked right in front of the bathroom and rushed inside. This time, I actually went. Finally. A moment of comfort. But then, footsteps. They came in from outside. Slow. Deliberate. I expected them to stop at the urinals. They didn't. They came straight to the stall. I saw the shoes first, just standing there, right on the other side of the door. Just waiting. My heart dropped. It had to be him. Somehow, he'd followed me. I was paralyzed. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. The only thing I could think to do was grab my phone and dial 911 on speaker. The moment the operator's voice echoed out, "911, what's your emergency?" I raised my voice. "I'm being followed by a dangerous man. I feel threatened." I said it loud. I wanted him to hear every word. He did, because the shoes turned and walked away. I told the operator everything, begged to stay in the bathroom until police arrived. And that's exactly what I did. When the officer knocked, I felt like I could finally breathe again. I came out and gave the description. Told him everything, about the man at the first rest stop, the creepy stare, the stalking. We checked my car to make sure it hadn't been tampered with. It was clean. Whoever he was gone. Again. Slipped through the cracks. The officer followed me back to the highway and peeled off a few exits later. And that was it. But I still wonder, how long had he been following me? Was he already waiting at the first rest stop? Or had he picked me from the road? I'll never know. But I do know this. The next time you stop at a rest area in the middle of the night, look around first. Because someone might already be standing in the corner, waiting for you to walk in. I saw her pale, blood-covered face just seconds before she lunged, and I swear, her mouth wasn't just open, it was rotting. The rest of my road trip after that second rest stop was, thankfully, uneventful. But the fear? The paranoia? It lingered. That night rattled me harder than anything I'd ever experienced before. I'd never been followed before. Not like that. And yeah, I know this kind of thing happens more to women, but that's a false comfort. It can happen to anyone. If you're listening to this and want more, all my stories, including exclusive ones, are available on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Just check the link in the description. But let me tell you about the Royal Hawaiian Motel. It's been abandoned for years, over a decade, maybe more. You'll find it in Baker, California, half sunk into the desert like a fossil. The kind of place time forgot. I do a lot of solo urban exploration. Sometimes at night, which I know isn't smart. But there's something addictive about the stillness, the isolation. You feel like you're the last person on Earth. I chose to explore the motel after dark, because the desert heat during the day is unbearable. So I parked on the side of the road, grabbed my flashlight, and made my way over. No fence. No signs. No security. Getting in was laughably easy. At the back of the property, there was a deep, graffiti-covered pool, empty and echoing, like a cement grave. I scanned the second-floor walkway with my light and saw what I expected: broken doors, busted glass, gaping entryways into nothingness. Some of the upper floor looked burned out, charred wood and black streaks eating through the walls. Probably vandalism. Or maybe something worse. It was silent. Except for my footsteps crunching debris, there were no sounds. No traffic. No wind. Nothing. Then, out of the quiet, a voice. A female voice. Close enough to be nearby, but just far enough that I couldn't make out what it said. My blood went cold. I did what I always do in these situations: hid. Slipped into one of the ground floor rooms, killed my flashlight, and pressed my back against the wall. I waited. Listened. Nothing. Eventually, I clicked my light back on and looked around. The room was stripped down to its skeleton, graffiti everywhere, a stained mattress on the floor, and an old dresser, its drawers sagging open like broken teeth. Maybe someone had been crashing here. But this place? It was so far off from civilization, it didn't make sense. I kept exploring, checking each room on the lower level, peeking through broken windows and warped doors. Each one was the same story: debris, filth, and walls shouting obscenities in spray paint. And then, a loud crash from above. I stopped cold. Something had fallen. Something heavy. I raised my light and aimed it at the second floor. The walkway stretched into shadow. Broken doors. Cracked glass. Darkness. I figured maybe it was an animal. Or another explorer. Maybe even someone squatting. Still, that didn't make it better. I climbed the stairs. Each step creaked louder than the last. I moved slow, listening. As I walked along the upper level, the sound started again. A steady, rhythmic thump. Thump. 2 seconds. Thump. It was coming from one of the rooms ahead. The closer I got, the louder it became. Then, right when I stood outside the door, it stopped. Just like that. I cleared my throat and called out. "Hey, I'm just exploring. I don't mean any harm." No answer. I peeked into the room with my light off, just using what little starlight crept in from behind me. My eyes adjusted. There was someone in there. A silhouette. Standing at the far end near the wall. It smelled like rot. Like feces. Like something that had been alive far too long. I pulled back to check my flashlight, aimed it low so I wouldn't blind anyone, just trying to be cautious. I clicked it on, slowly raised the beam back toward the doorway. And that's when I saw her. 2 pale, bare feet. Running straight at me. I instinctively lifted the flashlight, and froze. She was inches away, a woman with a bloodied forehead, matted hair, and yellow filth smeared around her mouth. Her jaw hung slack. Her eyes locked onto mine. It was like staring into a walking corpse. I screamed and ran. I didn't look back. Not once. I heard her screaming behind me as I pounded down the stairs and tore across the broken pavement toward my car. Her voice never got farther away. She was chasing me. I didn't stop until I slammed my door shut, locked it, and peeled out, tires spitting gravel into the darkness. I don't know who she was. I don't know if she was alive. All I know is this. She was waiting for someone. And that night, it was me. I'm not proud of how I reported it. But when someone like that comes lunging at you from a shadow with a bloodied face and screaming like she never stopped, you start to feel like maybe someone else should deal with it. After I'd driven far enough away to feel like I wasn't being followed, I pulled into a Taco Bell parking lot and called my buddy Alex. He's into urban exploration too. I had originally invited him to check out the Royal Hawaiian Motel with me, but he couldn't make it. When I told him what happened, I expected shock. Instead, we had this grim little back and forth, trying to make sense of what I saw. And that's when he said it. "The banging you heard, that was probably her hitting her head against the wall. Explains the forehead." I sat there, just staring out the windshield. I asked if I should call the police, just thinking out loud, you know? But Alex cut in. "You'll be admitting to trespassing. They might charge you instead." He had a point. So I did what felt safer. I started looking for a payphone to make an anonymous tip. Yeah, I know. A payphone. Like it was still 1999. Obviously, that turned up nothing but empty walls where phones used to hang. Eventually, I just dialed the non-emergency number on my cell. I gave a vague report, said I'd heard someone had seen a disturbed woman in the ruins of the motel. I didn't say it was me. I didn't give my name. And I hung up the moment they said they'd look into it. I didn't stick around. I'll never know if anyone ever responded to that call. But I still see her face when I close my eyes. That mess of yellow sludge around her mouth. The blood. The smell. She needed help, or maybe she needed to be locked away somewhere she could never reach another person again. He didn't say a word, just stared at us from the dark with the kind of empty face you never forget. And then he screamed. A few years ago, back when I lived in a quieter town, my family decided we were moving 4 hours away. They went house hunting, which left me alone for a bit. So naturally, I called up a few friends and planned a road trip that absolutely none of us should have agreed to. We were dumb, restless, and in the mood to be scared. So we picked a place 2 or 3 hours out, Bryce Hospital, An abandoned psychiatric facility with a history that reads like a horror novel. Patients mistreated, left to rot, some rumored to have died during treatments. The place was supposedly haunted. We left at 11 p.m. so we'd get there around 2 a.m., because of course we did. When we finally pulled up to the old dirt road that led to it, we just sat in the car for 10 minutes. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but we all had the same feeling. That bad feeling. Like we were standing outside a place that had already chosen not to let us back out. Eventually, we said screw it and drove in. Branches scraped the sides of the car. Tall grass swallowed the path. Our headlights barely lit the rotted skeleton of the building. And when we saw it, we went silent. It was massive. Roof collapsing, vines choking the walls. At the center of the crumbled parking lot was what remained of a fountain, stone, dry, twisted with overgrowth like something in a cursed fairy tale. We killed the engine and stepped out. The first thing I noticed were the pentagrams spray-painted on the walls. Everywhere. The inside of the building smelled like rot and mildew and dust. Everything sagged and crumbled beneath our feet. We climbed what was left of the stairs, then used a ladder to get up to a section of roof. That's when we saw the light. It flickered in the distance, a white flash, like a phone screen. We called out. No answer. The light disappeared as fast as it came. My cousin wanted to check another room to make sure we were safe. But my instincts were screaming no. I slipped into a different room next to theirs, just to breathe. Old mattresses littered the floor. Graffiti. Silence. Then, out of nowhere, clink. The sound of something hitting glass. I whipped around but didn't see anything outside the window. I told myself it was nothing. I shouldn't have. We regrouped and made the ultimate mistake. We went to the basement. The stairs were mostly destroyed, so getting down was slow and painful. Once we reached the bottom, we took a second to rest, and that's when we heard it. A voice. From the back of the basement. Low. Muffled. Male. My cousin took the lead, flashlight shaking as he aimed it toward the sound. That's when he saw him. A man, squatting, staring at the wall. Not moving. We all froze. My cousin started backing up. Slowly. Never turning his back to the man. When he reached us, he helped us back up the rubble stairs. As we climbed, he shouted to the guy. Are you okay? The man turned. And he stared at us. Just stared. Then he screamed. Not a shout. Not a call for help. A scream, raw, animal, broken. And then he charged. We all screamed. Bolted. Slipping, tripping, slamming into each other in the panic. We didn't look back. When we got to the car, we were shaking so hard none of us could get the keys in the ignition. When we finally did, we peeled out of there, tires howling down that overgrown road. I don't know if he chased us all the way out. I don't want to know. But the way he screamed. It sounded like someone who had forgotten what silence was. Like someone who had been alone down there for years. Or maybe he hadn't been alone at all. We didn't know where we were running, we just knew we had to get away from him. After we saw that man scream and charge at us from the depths of the Bryce Hospital basement, all hell broke loose. We didn't have time to think. We just ran. None of us knew the layout of the grounds. No one had scouted an exit. We just sprinted toward the back of the building and dove out a shattered window, landing hard in the tall grass and weeds behind the hospital. The woods swallowed us instantly. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps, his breath, maybe even his voice. I couldn't tell if he was screaming anymore or if it was just the sound of blood rushing through my head. Branches scraped my face. My legs slammed into trees. My whole body felt like it was being shredded by the dark. My cousins were up ahead, their flashlights like distant stars fading fast. I finally caught up in a clearing. We gasped, staggered, stared at each other with wide, wild eyes. There was a trail. We took it, hoping, praying, it led back to the car. But it didn't. We walked for an hour in the wrong direction, panic sitting heavy in our chests. When we finally decided to turn around and try the other way, we were already beyond exhausted. Every noise made us jump. Every shadow looked like a face. Eventually, we saw it. The building. Looming in the dark like a monument to everything that had gone wrong that night. Relief hit hard. But just as we got close to the car, we heard it, rustling in the bushes beside the building. Then, like déjà vu, a rock flew out and hit my friend in the shoulder. Hard. We spun around, and there he was. The man from the basement, emerging from the brush like he'd been waiting. Like he knew we'd be back. We sprinted to the car. He chased us again. He was far enough behind that we got in, slammed the doors, and locked them just in time. My hands were trembling as we started the engine. The headlights came on, just in time to catch his face. He ran at us with a glass bottle, slamming it against the windows, screaming. He looked like something straight out of a nightmare. We peeled out of there. Didn't speak a word on the drive back. Just sat in silence, white-knuckled and shaking. None of us have ever explored again. That was the end of it. "Lovely day today, isn't it?" she said, like it wasn't the dead of night on a forgotten road in the Georgia backwoods. I was 15 when my older brother Leo, who was 18, took me to an abandoned house someone told him about. He didn't want to go alone. We parked the car deep in the trees, off a cracked concrete road that looked like it hadn't seen maintenance in decades. Grass was growing through every seam, weeds reclaiming everything. As we walked toward the property, I noticed someone behind us. A woman. She was walking slowly, arms folded behind her back, like she was on a peaceful stroll. I asked Leo what we should do. "Just play it cool," he said. "If we run, it'll look sketchy." We kept walking, maybe a little faster. I glanced back again. She was closer now. Smiling. Then she said, "Lovely day today, isn't it?" Leo and I both responded automatically. Yeah. Our voices didn't match what we were feeling. She kept walking. Closer. Closer. Then, without warning, still smiling, still folding her hands behind her back, she said, "I have to go to bed now." Leo and I looked at each other. That was it. No words. We both picked up the pace fast. Leo called back to her, "Have a great day, ma'am." But we didn't look back. Eventually, we did. And she was gone. Not just out of sight, gone. No sign of her on the road. She'd gone into the woods. That chill stuck with us the rest of the walk. But we made it to the house. It looked like it had been lost to time. Ivy climbed the walls. Windows shattered. The house sagged like it had been holding its breath for decades. We climbed in through a broken window, careful not to slice ourselves. Inside, it was eerie, too intact. All the furniture was still there. Wall art. Coffee table decor. Dishes in the sink. Even the fridge was full of food, rotten, reeking food, like death had been left on a shelf and sealed inside. We checked the first floor. Then we went to the basement. It was worse. Messy. Carpet a faded blue, garbage and old papers everywhere. But it was still furnished. There was a strange light coming in from the windows near the ceiling. It didn't feel right. Then we heard it. Thump. From upstairs. We froze. We waited. Silence. We told ourselves it was just an old house settling. But I'm not so sure. She was standing there, smiling like before, and then she said the one sentence that still chills me every time I think about it. "Do you want to see what's behind my back?" There wasn't much left to see in the basement, so Leo and I made our way back upstairs. We'd already explored most of the first floor, so the only thing left was the second. At the top of the stairs, I remember there was a bathroom straight ahead. Off to the left was a short hallway leading to an open door, and then that hallway bent left again, further into the house. I don't remember what was to the right. And you'll understand why in a second. Leo and I went left. The first room on that hallway was a bedroom, not the master, but still a good size. There was a double bed, an old wooden dresser that looked like it belonged in a different century, and a few articles of clothing still tucked inside. Everything in that room felt stale. like it had been waiting. Leo left the room first. I was still inside, taking one last glance at the peeling wallpaper when I heard his voice, quiet, tense, and shaking. "Dude, come here." The tone in his voice made my stomach twist. I stepped into the hallway. He was frozen, staring. I followed his gaze. She was there. The woman from earlier. Standing at the end of the hallway. Inside another bedroom. Right in front of the bed. Still smiling. That same fixed, uncanny smile. And then she spoke. "Do you want to see what's behind my back?" I didn't even process the words at first, just the way she said them. Calm. Sweet. Like she was offering us a secret. Like whatever was behind her back was meant just for us. Leo didn't hesitate. He screamed, "Fuck you!" and shoved me hard, pushing me toward the stairs. We ran. No looking back. No questions. We blasted out the front door, feet pounding against the dirt, lungs on fire. My heart felt like it was punching holes in my chest. But I had to look back, just once. I turned my head toward the house, toward the upper windows. Nothing. She wasn't there. Not in the windows. Not on the porch. Not following us, at least, not that we could see. But that didn't stop us from running. We didn't stop until we were deep into the trees, out of sight from the house, barely able to breathe. I gagged, body trembling, trying to throw up from pure panic and exhaustion. When we made it to the car, we jumped in, locked the doors, and Leo peeled off like the ground might swallow the wheels if we stayed 1 second longer. The whole ride home, we couldn't stop trying to explain it away. Maybe she's just a crazy woman off her meds. Maybe she lives in the house. Maybe she escaped from somewhere. But even if any of that were true, it still didn't answer the one question neither of us could shake. What was she hiding behind her back? And was she carrying it the whole time? When she followed us down that cracked concrete road, hands folded, walking like a ghost. What was she holding? We'll never know. And honestly, I don't think I ever want to.